Well, we told you earlier about some of the closing arguments Democrats made on this election eve. The question is whether America is buying what the Democrats are selling. Let's bring in the panel, former Obama campaign foreign policy advisor David Teferi and Project 21 co-chair Horace Cooper. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I love having you on. This is great to be back in D.C. You know, I like David. I really, you watch the president, and he's begging oil companies over the past couple of weeks, you got to turn the spigot. You got to get us some more oil. And then he all of a sudden goes against coal and against oil with this. Watch.
We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar. We're also providing tax credits to help families buy energy-efficient appliances. No more drilling. There is no more drilling. I haven't formed any new drilling.
And you wonder why oil companies are not eager to reinvest and start these things going again, because they think that as soon as these elections are over, the man in the top is going to come after them again.
You know, Trace, I looked into this no more drilling statement by President Biden, and it's important for your viewers, I think, to have context. Because if you read the transcript, the question he was asked before he said that was about offshore drilling. And when he said no more drilling, he meant no more offshore drilling approved by the federal government. Drilling is still happening, as you know. In fact, we are drilling more now than we were under the last days of President Trump's presidency. We're almost at 12 million barrels per day, and we're the biggest producer of oil in the world. Biden isn't cutting that off. He's just saying he doesn't want more offshore drilling. It
sounds like the war is reinvigorated against oil, against coal, against these kinds of fossil fuels, and the president campaigned on this, Horace. So it's no surprise that, you know, I mean, David's saying, oh, no, it doesn't mean that, doesn't mean that. Well, the oil companies are like, well, he means it. He's going to shut the whole thing down.
I think David needs to talk to another Democrat, Senator Manchin.
Yep,
he is
also
not
upset.
convinced. He is not convinced that this is something you can sweep under the rug. And let's just be clear, offshore drilling is needed. We need to expand. That will lower the price. And one of the reasons why the political problems that this president is facing and his party is gasoline prices are far too high.
And even his own party is a little bit disappointed. This is from Third Way. This is a Democratic think tank. They said the following here. Despite a roster of GOP candidates who are extreme by any standard, voters see Democrats as just as extreme. Democrats are underwater on issues voters name as their highest priorities, including the economy, immigration, and crime, while Democrats maintain a lead on handling certain issues like abortion and climate change. Voters also rank these issues as lower priorities. David, they went to the mat with these different things, abortion and these other, and President Biden kept saying the economy is fine. Well, the numbers show they may not do very well tomorrow. And part and parcel of that is because they didn't focus on what Americans wanted them to focus on.
If you look at Third Way's Twitter page today,
we're not going to go to the backstory of this, too.
It's important because they congratulate President Biden on creating 10.3 million new jobs during his presidency. Now, you're right. Third Way is saying
those are COVID jobs that just came back in the market, though, David.
What Third Way is saying is that Democrats should focus more on the economy.
Right.
As you said, and instead of focusing on some domestic issues that can be polarizing. And we'll see what happens with the election tomorrow. Perhaps Third Way is right. Polling definitely shows that voters think economy is the #1 issue in this election. And this will be a referendum on Biden's economy. But I would also note, inflation is the worst part of the economy. Inflation is painful for people around the world. But there's inflation in Europe as well. In fact, it's higher in Europe than in the United States. So it's not just about President Biden. There are world trends here that are creating inflation.
Doesn't really help the guy who's struggling. You say, you know what, the guy down the street's got it worse than you do, pal. So just suck it up is what they're saying. In fact, speaking of suck it up, the chair of the Democrats Congressional Campaign Committee said this about inflation. Watch. Here's how you solve this problem.
What have you done and what do you plan to do to help solve our inflation problem?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a family where, if the gas price went up, the food budget went down. So by this time of the week, we'd be eating Chef Boyardee if that budget wasn't going to change, right? So that's what families have to do.
Solved, Horace. You just solved the whole thing. You just get a can of Chef Boyardee. It's like $1.99, and you're done, right?
Marie Antoinette said, let them eat cake.
Right.
This is go to the store and get this can. Now, when I was 9, it was a great treat. But when you're telling grown people who work 40 plus hours a week, this is your new normal. And to answer David's question, I would just make this point. A president could do what Japan has been doing and having some of the lowest inflation ever in their country. A president in this country could do that, just like Donald Trump was able to create job growth that other countries envied. It's possible with leadership, but there's a reckoning coming tomorrow. Woke, go broke.
Chef Boyardee for thee, David?
I think it's a treat whether the economy's good or bad.
I love it. Listen, the oil thing is not, it's offshore. You look deeper into third ways, it's things. So the Chef Boyardee comment truly is kind of one of those things where you think, okay, it's a little bit, I mean, you're kind of talking down to people. I just lastly want to get this in, I don't have any time, but when Black and Latino and suburban women start moving to the GOP, something is wrong. You get 10 seconds.
Absolutely. We're going to see a blowout. The increase in the number of minorities voting against this president and his party is going to shatter records.
David?
I know that's what he hopes for. I doubt that that's true. I do think Republicans will pick up seats in the House. I think the Senate will be very close. I think it'll come down to Georgia, and there could be a runoff in Georgia, and we may have to wait until January to see who controls the Senate.
Red wave.
Red wave. We'll see. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, coming up.